Welcome to Lesson 2, What Career Should You Pursue? As I mentioned in Lesson 1, this is a very important decision to make because it dictates so much of what you should do in college. It's going to dictate what you study, and it's going to dictate how you borrow. So it's important that we figure it out. So how do we figure it out? Well, as I mentioned, we have 4 things we got to figure out. What is your personality? What are your interests? What are your skills and abilities? And what are your values? And it's so important that when we look at these 4 things, we line them all up to pick a career. Because would it surprise you if I said that you could be in a career that you find interesting and that you're good at, but that you won't end in staying very long because you don't like it? Take this as an example. I am a guy that loves working with numbers. I love doing data analytics, and I think I'm pretty good at it. At least in my careers, I've stayed in it a long time doing these things for other people. And so it's kind of been affirmed. But if a company called me tomorrow and said, hey, Nick, we want you to come and we want you to do data analytics for us. We have this high-powered computer with all the cool tools on it for you to do all the data analytics that you love to do, and we're just going to have you do that for us day in and day out. Well, it sounds kind of good because I like working with data, I'm good at working with data, but guess what? After a couple of months, I'd be really frustrated and I would leave, and here's why. It comes back to my personality makeup. One of my more predominant personality traits is that I'm an extrovert. So I love to be around people. I love to socialize. I'm an enthusiastic person. If you lock me behind a computer for multiple hours a day without really getting to interact with people, I'm not going to find fulfillment in that job. And so for you, I want you to think about what is your personality? What are your interests? What are your skills and abilities? And what are your values so that you can figure this out? The best tool that I like to use to figure this out is called the Career Direct assessment. And this tool walks you through figuring out those 4 key areas about yourself. And so I want to talk you through that assessment so you can kind of know how it works and see if it's something that you would like to pursue. So the very first thing that they look at is your personality. And there's 12 factors that they look at. We call them 12 major factors. And it's looking at, are you an introvert or are you an extrovert? Are you compliant or are you dominant? Are you cautious or adventurous? Are you unstructured or conscientious? And it looks at these things and it helps you figure out on what scale do you fall on. But not only does it measure these factors, within these factors it measures subfactors. So take an introvert and an extrovert. The subfactors for those would be on the introvert side, distant, quiet, reserved. And on the extrovert side, it would be social, verbal, enthusiastic. And actually, when you look at these subfactors, you'll be measured on each one. And so you might have some introvert tendencies and some extrovert tendencies. Now, I'm all on the extrovert side. But if you were to take my wife's personality assessment, she actually is an introvert that is social. And so we'll see that. And one of the most important things to think about when we look at the personality, in this assessment at least, is that there's no such thing as a bad personality. Everything is scored on a positive scale. And that is so important because you don't want to think that you were given some bad personality. What you have is personalities with some strengths and some non-strengths, and you're going to have to learn how to leverage those so that you are the best resemblance of that personality that you can be. So sometimes a dominant person can be very blunt and abrasive, but there are also phenomenal leaders that can take charge in hard circumstances. Introverts sometimes get a bad rap for being not social or unfriendly, but that's not true. They're just energized by having time alone so that they can spend time with people. So that's the personality side of it. The next thing is that we're going to look at interests, and they're going to look at your subject interests and your career interests and activity interests. It would be crazy to think, but there is over 31,000 different careers that you can choose from. And so we need to boil that down so you can find the one that's right for you. The Career Direct assessment helps make that fun, easy, and ultimately rewarding. So when it comes to the interest, and they're looking at the different subjects that you're interested in, the different careers, and the different activities, it's going to rate you on all of those on a scale from 0 to 100, so you know kind of how interested you are in each of those things. Then it's going to take into the skills and abilities. And it's going to have you rate yourself on, are you good at certain things? And we're going to focus on those things. A lot of times people want to make their weaknesses greater strengths. But the philosophy that this assessment takes on and that I really enjoy is that you want to take what you're ultimately already good at and just become better at it. You see, that's what a team helps you do. They come in and they help supplement the areas that you're weak in so you can focus on the things that you're good at. I take this for example. Let's say you're interested in sports and you want to pick between pursuing either basketball or soccer as a collegiate sport. And your coach looks at you and says, hey, you know what? As I'm evaluating your soccer skills and your basketball skills, I think you'll make a much more phenomenal basketball player. And so you look at that and you go, well, let me do what I'm already good at so that I can play well in college. But then if you get in college and your coach looks at you and he says, hey, your left-hand dribble isn't strong enough, I need you to work on it, that's a skill that you got to improve because it's part of the overarching skill that you're trying to be good at, and that's basketball. So hopefully that makes sense. The next thing is that we got to look at your values. What do you want to get out of work? Do you want to be a harmonious work environment? Do you want it to be aesthetic? Do you want to have flexibility in your schedule? What do you want to get out of work? Do you want it to be a high income salary, continuing education, leadership? And what do you want to get out of life? Are you focused to be with family, friends? Is integrity important to you? And it ranks you on all those things, and then it helps you make a full picture. So when you put all those things together, it starts to make a clear picture on what career you should pursue. Now, it might sound a little overwhelming, but under the guidance of a trained consultant, this can be a really fun and rewarding process. And so if this is something that you're interested in exploring for you, you can check out the details below and set up an appointment to have your Career Direct assessment done. Well, that's it for this lesson. In the next one, we're going to look at how to choose a right fit college. So click on the next lesson to learn more.